Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Hospitality Today Live. I am so excited for you to be here today because this is going to be a very, very exciting episode. And I just want to say thank you for being here with us again. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you going to need help for your goals here in this new year of 2022? Are you looking for attention when using social media? Are you leaving opportunities behind when trying to connect with customers? Well, then again, this show you will not want to miss. Today, we have a fascinating episode with Leanne Calderwood, a hospitality branding expert from Canada that will bluntly share about the importance of having a personal brand in the industry. Find out why developing your brand is an extension to your products and services too. Also, hear Leanne's best social media platform advice so you can explode online. Plus, learn the different ways to sell and reach your customers in the post-pandemic world. So bring your hardcore questions for Leanne because we are going to dive into this right now. Don't forget, it's virtual or even in person. Videochatgameshows.com. So everyone, I want to let you know, Leanne Calderwood is here with us. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, good morning, Deborah. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. And thank you so much for joining us. This cannot be more perfect to have you on today's show because the hospitality industry is coming back from a crisis and now there's a new crisis. What should people be doing? What should they, think of themselves? What should they, look for? And all this and more is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm so happy that you're here. And so what we should do is first start out with the fact, let's let your viewers know, because I know they're going to have some questions and comments along the way. Let's find out a little bit about your background and your passion for personal branding.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I started in the industry about 24 years ago as a meeting planner. I did some association and meeting planning and soon moved into the world of site selection. In fact, I'm still a site selection associate with Conference Direct. Love working for them. But early on in my site selection career, when we were giving those, directives to build our businesses, I was a meeting planner. I was not a hotel sales professional. And so that whole sales piece felt odd and awkward. And I was an introvert. And so I found the exercise of doing cold calls and emails really clunky. And it wasn't working for me. So that's actually where my brand began, as I started to think, okay, there's got to be an easier way to do this. I love serving my clients. I love doing the work of a site selection associate, but I needed to find the clients and I just wasn't resonating with those traditional sales methods. So I started to do a few things. I started to create resources for my clients in kind of like an inbound marketing campaign. And those resources then created my website.
Oh,
so I think a lot of us, when we start our personal brands, and we don't even call it that back when, is when we start to be more intentional about attracting our audience, it's a lot of trial and error. So I had my website and I was posting resources for meeting planners on there and started to see my business grow. And then I started to see, okay, I'm also going to put resources on my website for hotel sales professionals. Because as someone in site selection, I was also getting prospected for business. And I was seeing a lot of really great messaging and a lot of really terrible messaging. So I started to pay attention to those good and bad practices. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to share this as well with the hotel community, because if I can have robust relationships with the hotel sales community, that's also going to help my site selection business.
Right.
So my blog evolved again. And I feel like my blog has kind of reiterated and turned over multiple times. That took me to COVID, where now site selection was no longer required for, as you know, 2 years. And I thought, okay, now I need to decide, how do I want to serve my clients and serve the hotel community? So I took everything that I learned about branding and about LinkedIn over the past 10 years. And now you see the brand that I have today as someone who is helping others look at sales differently, reframe how we connect with our clients and customers. And we're doing that through our personal brands. And it's quite effective.
Wow, interesting. Well, then what you have done is you pretty much rebranded yourself
Yes.
multiple times, and a lot of people have, which means everybody's having that firsthand experience going through it. They know it's necessary, but what is it? I mean, a lot of people are like, okay, I need to brand myself, but what is it? Why is it important? Because I know you believe developing a personal brand is the key to success. Can you share with us the definition of it and why it's important and a little bit more information from there?
Yeah, for sure. And it is an abstract concept, right? Personal branding is not like picking up the phone, a physical product, and sending a voicemail. That's something that is very concrete, and we can put parameters and scripting around that. But personal branding, and there's a lot of definitions out there, but here's mine, it's the intentional amplification of personality characteristics that we're going to use to impact and influence our audience, to set ourselves apart from the competition and attract those leads and opportunities. So the biggest part of the definition for me is the intentional amplification, because I think we all have personal brands. Everyone has a brand. Everyone has a reputation. When you step into a room, people already have created opinions about you, whether it's through your social media, through your business interactions, whatever that looks like. You already have a reputation. But when you're intentional about your brand, you're now taking control of the messaging. And you're saying, these are the things that I stand for. These are the communities that I serve. And this is how I do it. So we're trying to create some concrete parameters around our brands by bringing it back in and putting those controls around the messaging that we put out to our communities. Does that make sense, Deborah?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot more explanation of that. Helps us gravitate toward what it means, so that we can go from there and take the steps necessary to put those into action. And to discover, though, our own brand, you have a tendency to want to connect it with social media as well, right?
Yes. Well, social media is definitely one platform. It's not the only platform, but it's certainly one of the platforms that I have chosen. So part of my brand is about one social media platform in particular, but it doesn't have to be about the one that I have chosen. And that's what I love about hospitality, is we have a number of different platforms that we can choose, be it social media or long form content. And Deborah, this is an example of long form content, is your live video shows. This is how you've positioned your brand, is through your live video show. But for people who don't want to hang out on social and don't want to hang out on live video, they can still create a very strong personal brand through the way they treat their customers, their networking presence, their elevator pitch, all of those tools, their email campaigns. So yes, social media and long form content like yours, Deborah, definitely helps to amplify your brand further, but it's not a requirement in order for you to take control of your messaging.
That's good to know. That's really good to know. So in other words, there's options.
Oh, for sure.
And working with somebody like you, Leanne, would help them gear toward those marketing efforts, promotional efforts in order to get their message across
Mhm.
on exactly what they do, who they're about, and all that. So that's really good to know, because everybody thinks, oh, it's just social media, it's just social
Yeah.
media. But having the options really is nice to hear. And I would imagine you go through all that with your clients.
Yes, we do. And that's what, again, what I love about our industry is because we're based on experiences and we're based on a lot of visual components, there's so many other platforms that we can use.
Okay.
And I always like to think of that sommelier who is not on social media, but her reputation of just being an expert in that field and creating an experience that creates referrals and testimonials and brings customers in that way.
Right.
That's how she does it. That is her platform, is
Okay.
standing tableside and helping her guests through the wine menu. That's her platform. So whether you're a sommelier or a hotel sales professional or a meeting professional, there's different platforms that are going to resonate better with your message. And so we're going to dive deep and find out which one works best for you.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And so we should be developing our brand, from what I understand, through those avenues and those options. But how is it connected to your products and services?
Mhm, mhm.
Because what you're saying is have that brand within you, who
Yeah.
you are, and display it out to what you do with your products and services. How does that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, and we've heard this in a number of industries, is that people buy from people first and then products second. And we can look at tons of historical examples of where this is true in the B2C market, right? We had Michael Jordan selling running shoes. We had Cindy Crawford selling Pepsi. These are people who buy from people first, right? They want to buy into Michael Jordan's brand, and his brand is tied to a product. We're doing the exact same thing in the B2B world as well. Is people buy from people first and then the product second. So when we're setting ourselves apart from our competition, and let's take hotels for an example, because many hotels are in that sea of sameness. When you look at, a geographical region, you're all convention hotels and you all have the exact same amount of ballroom space or the exact same amount of guest rooms and the exact same types of amenities. How you set yourself apart is the experience is starting with you as the sales professional. And now we're creating that trust, and people are looking to us to be the expert about that space. And so they decide to choose our product because the person is tied to that product. So that's a
Okay.
great place to
Okay.
start. Does that
Yeah.
help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this sounds like a very strategic process with you, that people are probably not used to going through, but sounds very, necessary in order to advance in your career,
Mhm.
or your position, or whatever your goals might be. But if you're thinking of one of those options that you gave earlier, let's say social media, what avenue do you recommend with social media to
Yeah.
help?
Oh, and I could talk about this all day, but I do want to visit something you said, Deborah, which is
Oh,
so important because you used words like goals and with personal branding, remember that definition. It is about the intentional amplification and being intentional about your brand. And
sure.
one of the things that everyone should do before they even start to look at those platforms is decide, what are the goals around my brand? Is it to sell my 10,000 square foot ballroom? Then we need to articulate that, and we need to remember that as we flesh out the other details of our brand essence.
Right.
But once we jump forward, and you're right, now we're kind of on step 3 of the process where we're looking at the different platforms. I believe the hospitality industry has an incredible opportunity to hang out on LinkedIn. Which is different from the other social media platforms that I feel we were traditionally hanging out on before. But LinkedIn has really come on as being that great place for thought leadership. And we've had a ton of thought leadership. We've been exploding in thought leadership the past couple years as we reinvent and reimagine and redesign the way we create experiences for our clients. So LinkedIn is a great place to amplify your brand as long as you're very clear on the goals you have for creating a brand in the first place. But
Okay.
yes, LinkedIn is where I hang my hat. That's where you'll find me most often. And I have seen my brand grow as a result of LinkedIn.
Okay.
Now, I should say there's a couple things about hospitality that also makes Facebook and Instagram fun. We're in a very visual industry, so Instagram is a great place if you've got those visual elements. So you're a restaurant or you are a hotel sales professional and you want to showcase your amazing property. The Insta is a fantastic platform and something you should use. I don't have a lot of visual elements, right? I'm just a trainer and a speaker.
Right.
So I haven't gravitated towards the Instagram or TikTok like others have. And that's why I find LinkedIn is the best place for me. So always revisit your goals before you choose that platform.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And those that aren't familiar even with LinkedIn as much as they are with the other platforms, it sounds like it would be good to know across the board several different platforms, but
Yeah,
again, depending on their goals, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Well, and the advice I give anyone who's now going to be intentional about their brand is start with one platform. We get so excited in those early days, Deborah, where we're like, oh, I'm going to create an Instagram account,
Right.
and then I'm going to do a Facebook Live series, and then I'm going
Right.
to go on LinkedIn and do my newsletter. No,
Right.
pick one platform and pick one task. Once you
Okay.
get into the habit, right now we're outside the industry and we're just talking about work habits. Once
Okay.
you get into the habit of being consistent, then you can add something else. So Deborah, you have an incredible habit. You are consistent. You are on live every Tuesday, week after week after week after week. Now, if you decide you have the bandwidth to add something else, you're in a position to do that. But
Right.
until your
Okay.
show became a habit of yours, I wouldn't recommend throwing a bunch of other stuff after it.
So one step at a time is probably
Yeah,
the
it is.
key.
It is. Definitely.
Well, we want to bring in some questions and comments from people. We've actually got one for you here from Visibly Media. Are there, let's see, are there any absolute no-nos that a
Mm.
hospitality business should not do while building their brand on social media? Ooh,
Yeah,
good question.
that's a really great question. So thank you, Visibly Media. I wonder who that is. Please DM me on LinkedIn. I'd love to meet you. I think the biggest no-no with any brand, hospitality or otherwise, is slagging our competition. So being very respectful of our competition on social is incredibly important. Collaboration over competition, especially as we look at destinations trying to attract meeting planner business. So let's take that as an example. Is meetings are coming back, conventions and
Yes,
congresses are coming back.
right.
Working with your partners versus working in silos, I think would be my best piece of advice for Visibly Media.
Oh, good advice. So hopefully we'll see what she or he does with that one,
Yes.
because I think that having a personal brand is not something that a typical hospitality professional thinks about.
Mhm.
I think they believe, sales is important, working with people is important, but investing in you yourself seems to come last in the
Mhm.
hospitality industry. We're just all
Mhm.
about people, customers, clients, prospects out there. But so knowing that you are, the hospitality brand expert, it's really unique for
Yeah,
people to know about you. But
I
I,
hope so.
I hope the message of everybody, all the viewers out there, is that hey, it's time to invest in yourself.
Mhm.
And what better way to help serve your customers, your clients, or your employees, or employers, or peers, is to know who you are.
Mhm.
Bottom line. So you would think this would be the very first step that anyone would take, even if it's being reinvented all the time. Just knowing what your personal brand is, I would think, very important. And we're always growing, we're always
Mhm.
changing. So reinventing your brand is a good thing, I would think.
Yes, well, it's very meta what I do teaching about branding, because I am always changing up my brand or adding a few things or taking away other things. But we're also at a very lucky time in the industry, because I think most organizations in hospitality do see the value of a personal brand. And so they're encouraging their employees to do that, to explore themselves and to create that brand. I'm very lucky. Conference Direct has always supported the work that I've done and the brand I've tried to create. And you might not work for an organization that has that kind of support. Hopefully, they're going to come around. So I encourage people not to back down if they're excited about building a brand, because there's so many positives that can come out of it that come back to the organization. More sales, more trust, more of differentiating yourself in that sea of sameness. So
Sure.
organizations that see those as the positives of their staff having a personal brand, they're going to hopefully allow their employees to get started.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So are there any examples that really stick out in your mind, other than the ones you mentioned earlier, but of actually a hospitality professional that discovered about themselves, and what part of the hospitality industry did they work in?
Yeah. Oh, so you're looking for good examples of brands? Yes, I
Yes.
love
Oh,
this.
yes.
So to be honest, Deborah, you're an excellent example. Here's an example of someone who is creating content for the hospitality industry and giving others a platform to share their message. So whether that was intentional by you, Deborah, or not, that has become part of your brand. And it's very exciting to see you grow because you have given people that platform. Another example is Rupesh Patel. He's a hospitality leader, I believe, in the Eastern US. Always great leadership messages. So if you go to his LinkedIn profile, you're going to see a lot about leadership. Yes, he talks about hospitality, but his brand is about leading those teams, leading those hotel teams to perform at their best. So those are two examples. Another great example is Courtney Stanley. She's setting herself apart as being an industry MC and an industry speaker, especially around women's issues.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a speaker to speak and empower women, that's the brand, again, intentional or not, that's the brand that she's created for herself.
Wow.
So hopefully those are three that kind of spark people.
Yeah.
But it's about finding the thing that's very unique to you. And you don't need to be the expert in everything. You need to just have 10% more knowledge or 10% more passion or 10% of something over the next person to be a part of your brand.
Right.
So for Deborah, for you, 10% more than me about producing a quality live show that gives people a platform to share their message.
Right.
That
Exactly.
has become part of your brand.
Exactly.
So I hope that helps.
Oh, absolutely. So how long does a process like this last?
Last. Wow.
I mean, how do you go from not having a brand to a brand while working with you? How long does that process last?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would at least give yourself 4 to 8 weeks to really get a handle on all the bits and pieces. So again, that personal brand abstract concept, when someone works with me, is we then create more concrete parameters around that. And there's 5 dimensions that I kind of lead people through to get to the end of having a very holistic brand. And so we start by looking at our goals. And those aren't things that we should take lightly. So we're going to spend some time looking at our goals and getting very clear on it. And when we move into now deciding, okay, what do we pick out of ourselves and amplify it? There's some intention around that. So we want to take our time looking at all the thousands of unique things that make us up and deciding, I'm going to take that one off the shelf and this one off the shelf, and I'm going to make that part of my brand. And then we talk about those platforms. And for some, it's an easy decision. For others, it's going to take some time. And from there, we look at now creating content. And for social media, that makes sense. For a long form platform like yours, Deborah, that makes sense. You've got a process in place. So for whatever it is that they choose as their platform, we want to make sure that we're creating that habit of getting them creating that content or that consistent messaging. And then the last one is finding our communities. And Deborah, you are definitely there. You have created a robust community. But that's often the thing that gets forgotten the most is now that we have our brand, we actually built it for a reason. We built it to impact people. We built it to influence people. We built it to help people, whatever our goals were. So now we need to actually get our brand in front of those people. So that's the last piece of the puzzle. But to your point, it's always changing. My brand is always changing and evolving. So extending ourselves some grace when we want to make changes is so critical. And that we don't put those judgments on ourselves about, ooh, I made a mistake and I went with the wrong platform, or I don't think I want to talk about my family anymore, when it comes to what the things that I talk about. We just got to extend ourselves some grace, and we make decisions kind of lifelong process.
Right. And I would think, with hospitality professionals coming back, looking for a job, before they even send their resumes out, you would think they would want to know their brand, so that this would be a great selling opportunity to know who they are before completing that resume and sending it out to everybody. So
it's so true, because now you're setting yourself apart again in that sea of sameness of resumes. What is that differentiating factor? And so you can put that right on your resume, and then of course put it on your LinkedIn profile, because recruiters now are looking at both. So it's really critical, not just for you and I, Deborah, but critical for those looking for jobs, that their LinkedIn profile has something that really speaks to their differentiating factor and the way that they help the end user. So we're no longer sales managers, but we are people empowering meeting planners to create these wonderful experiences. That's what sets someone apart.
Great point. Great point. Well, the best part is your website is just full of great information. When I was on there the other day, I actually came across what you call a PB5D framework. And I downloaded it and I'm working on it. But I thought this is something that your viewers need to know about and hear about, because I just, you mentioned some of it already, but can you talk a little bit more in that detail?
Yeah, well, and I'm, again, changing my brand again as I'm trying to decide if that's the right title for that particular resource. But that really is my process. So the secret is out. This is exactly what we're going to go through, if we work together, is the personal branding 5 dimensions, PB5D. And the 5 dimensions or 5 Ds are defining your goals, designing your brand, determining what your platforms are, developing your content, and then discovering your community. So again, it's taking all of the things that are out there about our personal brand. We're now bringing them back in, putting some concrete parameters around it, really drilling down to, okay, this part of having a brand, what does that mean for me? Knowing it looks different from what it means for someone else. So yes, the PB5D framework is kind of the framework that I created to make sure that once you start the framework and you get to the end, you have uncovered all of the questions and all of the ambiguity when it comes to your personal brand, and you will have a solid personal brand once you get through that process.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with it. And I believe that's a free download, right?
It is. Yes, it is. It's on my website. Maybe I need to make it bigger, but yes, it is on my website. And if anyone needs it, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to send you the link to download.
Yeah. Let me put your contact information down so people can take a look at that. I highly recommend it. I'm halfway through the process, but I was very impressed how user-friendly it was. To just download and start working on it. So I highly recommend everyone else to do the same. And I believe you've got some quizzes and you've got a couple things going on.
Yeah, I just launched a quiz. So And I'm looking for feedback. So if anyone does the quiz and you see any mistakes or you want to give me your feedback, I'm an open door.
Just the fact that those resources are available says something about you, that you are here to help people, especially now of all times that we need to get back to work and get to utilize our talents, our skills, our expertise. You're the person in this industry that can make that happen. And I highly recommend anyone to contact you and make sure that you get that opportunity or to help them, in other words. So
thank you.
We are a very strong industry, and you're the type of person to make people even more stronger. And we just cannot thank you enough for being on this show to share your brilliancy, your beauty, and your talents as well. So
thank you for having me.
Excellent episode and information. So I want everybody to take a look at your information down there and contact you right away. So this was perfect. Great information. Thanks, Leanne.
You're welcome. It was great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. We'll keep tabs and see how people are doing out there with their own personal brands.
Yes.
So have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Well, there you go. Just as we predicted, Leanne Calderwood is an expert in the hospitality world when it comes to personal branding, and we cannot thank her enough for being part of this show today. She definitely knows and has, as you can tell, the background, the experience of what she does to help our industry. So definitely, I hope that everybody gets a chance to talk to her. And if you enjoyed this episode, by all means, share it with others as well. It will be on our social media platforms as well to take a look and review it as a replay as well for yourself. So the conversation just keeps going. And when it comes to your personal branding, that is one thing we all need to invest in ourselves with. So thank you for joining us for this, along with our sponsor, which is Video Chat Game Shows. And if you have any questions, by all means, contact us at hello@hospitalitytodaylive. So I'm Deborah Gardner, your host here at HTL. And remember, if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it right here on Hospitality Today Live. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.